Disclaimer. The hosts of this podcast, Timothy Patrick and Will Foley, are by no means professionals. However, having lived experience with mental illness themselves, they have gained useful perspectives on common mental health issues that some of us struggle to overcome on a daily basis. By sharing their stories, they hope to create connection. By creating connection, they hope to help you find your purpose. And through purpose, we can all begin to build the foundations for positive mental health. This is the Above Ground Podcast.
Are you ready to lace up your boots, throw up your horns, and jump into the pit? Then let's stomp the stigmas of mental illness. It's time for Above Ground Podcast. Now, Will Foley and Timothy Patrick.
Hey, what is up, everyone? Welcome to Above Ground Podcast.
Above Ground Podcast. Because you can't serve below.
You know who that is. You down with TPP.
Yeah, you know me.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to yet another episode. It's 2021. Holy shit.
Wow, we made it.
We did make it. How the fuck did we make it?
Smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Smoke and mirrors. Wow.
We made it because we are resilient. Because we believe in what we're doing, we believe in ourselves and help each other out, and we have some pretty good friends and people that help us out with the podcast too.
That is true, and tonight we're actually it's crazy that we're recording our first episode here in Foley headquarters. Some stuff has come up, so we had to adjust some things on the fly, and I'm testing the waters for the first time. And 2021 is going to be the year of all kinds of resiliency and new things, man.
Mm-hmm.
New things. That's what it's about.
2021 is about testing the waters. Testing the water.
There you go. Testing the waters. But you know what happens?
Make sure it's not dirty water.
Dirty water full of root beer and sausage. We get into new things, and oftentimes those old feedback loops start to play. And do we set ourselves up for failure? Do we set ourselves up to self-destruct? Is that a possibility? Like, what are we going to answer tonight? Is that what we're going to talk about?
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to answer anything, but we're definitely going to talk about, do we set ourselves up for failure? You know, is it like, do we spend our early years constructing self-destruction?
Oh, I think we definitely do. I think that's the biggest part of our self-destruction is that we set ourselves up because of those old records that keep dropping in the limbic jukebox. And I think unless you start to actually look at those records and start to clear out the ones that are all scratched and all DJ'd up, you know, after being spun around and scratched and warped, yeah, like, you know, they've been sitting out in the sun too long or out in the shed too long, man. I think those feedback loops that you keep getting can cause yourself to just fall back into those patterns. And then if you have a self-destructive pattern, they can really wreak havoc in that dome of yours, man. That Thunderdome that you got going on. It's, you know.
I agree. So I guess, yeah. So it's just kind of just. Like, the idea was, like, you know, that question is, do we set ourselves up for failure? Because I see a lot of people kind of, how should I put this, shitting in their pants, knowing that they shit their pants, saying that it smells, but then sitting in that shit.
That's true. We do sit in our shit oftentimes.
So it's like, sometimes I wonder if, you know, some people don't know any better, you know, which I was one of those people. I didn't know that there were certain tools existed, certain strategies, I guess you could say, to help the process, you know?
Well, that's what we're all about here on Above Ground Podcast, is figuring out strategies and sharing strategies.
And sharing them with the Above Ground Orchestra.
Now, granted, that self-destructive pattern, like, can lead to some very dark places. And what happens when you find those dark places? And does that lead to depression, does that depression lead to a bigger hole? Does that hole lead to a darkness that you just can't seem to get any light into? And is there a reason, though, do you think, is it just human nature that we don't want to look into those caves and those dark places to figure out why we have these patterns and we don't want to question them?
I don't know if I would say it's human behavior. I don't think it's like genetically wired that way. I think it's just more of a indoctrination. You know what I mean? I think it's just growing up, and we all do it. You have a child, and you don't want anything bad to happen to that child. So sometimes you may, there's no books on how to parent a child or parent 3 children. So you just kind of go off the whim. Sometimes you might be a little overprotective. Sometimes you don't want them to, go outside and play in the mud or whatever it is, just because you're worried. You know what I mean? It's like, you think about it when your child gets to 16 years old. There's a point in time where she's going to want to get a license. I mean,
oh Jesus!
Exactly.
Yeah, let's not even talk about that.
I know,
yet.
but what I'm saying is, like, so it's like, so you try to you try to do the right thing. And I'm not saying that anybody's doing the wrong thing. It's just it's the way, maybe I don't even think it is the way that we go about it. I think it's just like when you're a younger teenager or whatever, and you're told no, or not even told no, just say, hey, look it, like, basically, like, my son always says, I worry about everything, and I'm like, I don't worry necessarily about everything. I'm just trying to. I go over the scenarios in my head and say, like, hey, make sure your phone's on. Make sure you're here at this time, kind of thing, and check in, because unfortunately, with the way the world is these days, you just don't know, and maybe some of it, well, I'm sure a lot of it's my anxiety, for sure, but again, whatever it may be, it's kind of putting it on him, and then he is going to take that information however he perceives it, and it's going to go in his brain. So it's...
Well, sure, but when I think about, like, what I was doing when I was, before cell phones. Like, now I think that's part of it, though. I think that's part of our anxiety has grown because we're so connected that we can reach out to anybody at any time. And I think that carrying that little box in your pocket doesn't help the situation as much as it creates a safety net, because you can always check in. It also creates this this anxiety anyway.
Right.
And it amplifies the anxiety enough to where... But
at the same time, it could be, like you said, there's some positive. It could be a positive tool, It could be, like, there could be times, like, I guess the question is the same thing in general. It's like, what are the variables? Like, why is suicide an option for some people? Why do we, set ourselves up for failure? Is it like already in us, or is it like, what are the variables? Like, why do we continue down that path, I guess?
I think some of that stuff can be learned, and then some of it is imitated.
Right.
Now, the suicide contagion that they have found in certain cycles of things, like they did find that has happened where, a group of friends make this quote-unquote suicide pact, and one will, like, there's been some of that, but I think that you get to that point. I think there's a different level that you get to, at least in my own experience of having that thought of dying, is that you get to this different level of darkness, and your brain creates this almost flypaper that doesn't allow you to see anything but that empty way out. And you're almost geared to self-destruct.
Yeah, I mean, we do have, the brain's got a negative bias, so maybe that does have a lot to do with it.
Well, and I think that does have a lot to do with it. Is I think that negative bias does create that perfect scenario for some people to travel down that road, man.
Mm-hmm. I think, like, the brain is like a computer, I guess you could say, with, like with hardware and computers, they can get viruses. So the brain can get a virus, and then when the brain gets sick, what kind of function is going to happen? Lower capacity, slower, bogged down, that kind of thing. So when we get a virus of the mind, we see things and understand things through that virus.
Oh
So-
yeah, and you can't help but see anything through that virus.
Right, yeah.
And it's
you don't
and
know.
it's that we have these we see through shit-colored glasses,
Mhm.
and the only thing that you can see is the shit because there's
Yeah.
no way to clean the lenses. And you have to have there has to be a system for you to clean the lenses and a way for you to clean the lenses, whether that's taken but when you're in the throes of that self-destructive
I
mode,
know.
it's hard to pull yourself out of that
You're
to
absolutely
where
right.
to where you can see that, oh, wait a second, I'm traveling down a really treacherous path, man. Because it's not like, when you're traversing the mountain of depression or whatever thing it is that you're traversing, whether it just happens to be an incident, a trauma, an event or something. When you're mountain climbing, you already can see the mountain in front of you. You may not see all the spots to put your fingers, but it's a
Nice.
mountain. It's a mountain. So it's a little bit easier to look at because you chose to climb the mountain.
Right.
It's
you-
different. It's
You're
different.
right. You made that the perfect thing. You chose. You got up in the morning. You put on boots and a light jacket or whatever. You packed a bag and you were kind of ready. You
Right.
knew what you were gonna get into.
Right,
know,
you got your
somewhat,
ropes,
at
you
least,
got your
you know?
you got your those
Blaze or whatever they are.
the belays
Is that what
and
they are? Yeah.
I forget what they're called. And you got your mountain climbing shoes on.
Right.
And you got your chalk and you've got your tools. You got your tool belt, man, and you kind of know what you're going into if you're going to do something that crazy. I mean, it's got to be amazing, but I can't even think about that. But
Yeah.
when you're in the throes of a crisis, you can forget all about those tools.
Well, exactly, and that's the thing. It's like, what? Well, you know what? Why don't we take a little detour, like, because you said crisis. What for you? What is crisis?
Crisis is getting to the point of not being able to find anything that remotely shakes the scenario. Like, crisis is when you
Or out of options?
are out of options. And I think that's why when we talk about suicide, and we talk about suicide on this podcast a lot, okay? But I think when you feel like you've run out of options and you feel like you are trapped, and it would be easier not to wake up than it would be to stay awake. You cross a threshold sometimes that you can't get back over. Now, I'm not saying that it's impossible to get out of. I mean, if you're in the act of it, that's a completely different question. However, leading up to that, and when we talk about crisis, we're talking about that. When does that thought start to become manifest, and when do you manifest that? Now, that could be part of it too, though. If you live in a constant feeling of not having enough, of feeling less than you know what I mean? If you live in that constant feeling of not being enough, not having enough, not seeing a way up, then that creates this constant loop of I'm
And
never going to get out of it.
Go back to the goggles. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that the virus of the mind is making you have these thoughts, but the thoughts and the perspective may not be rooted in fact. It may not even really be our own true thoughts because it's filtered through the lenses that you were,
Absolutely. And it might, and again, everything is filtered through those glasses.
Yeah.
Everything is. It's impossible to not be.
Interesting.
Now, granted, when do you pull the button? When do you hit the self-destruct button? I mean, are you constantly on the path? And is that button in your pocket where you're like,
Yeah, I think for different people, yeah. I do think that, absolutely. You know.
Have you been experiencing this in the recently and in recent times?
No. No, I don't think so. No, I think there's always that cloud. You know what I mean? There's that cloud in the sky that, sometimes you don't realize it's there, and then you have some good days, and you might just look off to the left and be like, "Ooh, there's that cloud." So, it's a little bit of that looming danger.
Kind of like being out on a ledge and looking down and going, "Oh, hey, there's
Not
danger
quite
there,
that,
man.
but
There's
not,
some danger there."
Yeah, not quite to that, but this is more of knowing the ledge is there, but not getting to the ledge.
All right.
Yeah, no. I just, I see a lot of different people who are suffering with things and are just kind of, I don't know if I want to say headed down the wrong path, or just might need some assistance, maybe some help with tools or some knowledge that, this is going to pass, and it not only is it going to pass, but you have to kind of actively, seek help to make it pass, but it can indeed pass.
Yeah, you have to actively help yourself.
Yeah.
However, though, sometimes you just need somebody
Well, sure.
to just not even offer the suggestions.
True.
To just listen, and that's like a big thing that we'll cover in some episodes in the upcoming weeks about holding space, because I thought holding space was one thing, but holding space is really not just that. It's a totally different. There's a little bit more involved in it, and there's actually some processes in it and stuff. But I didn't realize that, sometimes and Sean Wellington said it best. Sometimes you need to just shut the fuck up and listen, man. That's what people really want.
Yeah, it's kind of true, which, I guess we all kind of want to be heard,
Everybody wants to be heard, but they want to feel like they've been heard. And that's a big thing. That's a big thing, and not.
That's like being acknowledged or validated.
Well, we'll talk. We'll talk about that in another episode, about acknowledgement versus validation and the other stuff. Because there's a lot of things that I did not realize were wrapped up in things. You'd start to realize that mandala's got a lot of different colors and shapes in it, and they're all kind of related to things, man. It's
It's like a diamond.
Yeah, there's all
facets,
those cuts. There's many facets to it.
Depending on where the light is shining, what angle you're at, this stuff's tricky, and I think that's another reason why we do what we do, is because, it's like we stayed up late playing Zelda, and we beat the game, and we beat the boss, and we want to share our tips with you guys.
I don't know. I never played Zelda, so.
Well, I did actually, but I don't know why I picked Zelda.
Wow, you're aging yourself, man.
That's all right. Age brings wisdom.
That's true. Age brings wisdom. Whether you listen to your own wisdom or not.
I'm going to go with that. I'm just going to say that.
Thing. But age bring now. If age brings wisdom, does wisdom bring perspective? Or can?
Yeah, I think so.
But does it really? Or is perspective something that you have to figure out? I mean, you can have wisdom.
Figuring it out would be part of the wisdom, wouldn't it, though? The knowledge
I think you can have the wisdom to know something is one thing, but still not have the perspective to see that you're out of step with it.
With time, though, I think, this is, as we all know, this is a journey, and sometimes you start climbing up that mountain, and either you get tired, you may even lose your footing and lose your way, your grip. And you get set back a little bit, but you try to, unfortunately, it kind of falls back on the person, and you have to say, geez, last time I reached for this rock, I went this way, and I reached, and grabbed it with this, so maybe if I go the other way and try it again, and kind of having insight and, working on that side of it, like the facts, I guess, and gaining perspective through the learning process.
I think it's hard to see you can see the facts and still look at it through your own jaded lens, though.
Oh, sure.
And that, I think, is And I think that that's a thing for another, like, that's why you have the distorted vision that you have. And
Yeah.
that's why you may not see a way out of certain things. I mean, if you're, if all of a sudden, you lose your job, you're spinning out of control. You don't know what to do.
Right.
I mean, and where where does it stop? Like, where do you stop and take a breath and say, okay, this may not be as bad as it seems.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think, if you're lucky enough to have a struggle buddy, sometimes they can kind of just go, hey, let's see, kind of take it for what it is. Let's look at the situation. Like, game's not over. We're going to get through this, and I'll help you with what you need.
Yeah, maybe the struggle buddy just needs to ride the bus with you and hang out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, maybe that's part of sharing space, holding space.
Yeah, I definitely think so.
Again, everybody's different. I think it depending on that person, depending on the scenario even. If a situation calls for your struggle buddy getting on the bus and riding it with you for a little bit, then, the problem is you got to, it's one of those, if you're at 30% and your struggle buddy's at 50%, you got like 80% going on there. So it's like,
true, that two heads are better than one scenario.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, again, if you are at like 20% and your struggle buddy's at 20%, it could be a
right,
a fair weathered ride on that bus.
That's true. And I think, and I don't necessarily know if you're both at that down point, I don't know if you actually can help one another.
Yeah, no,
all the time.
Yeah,
I think you wind up stirring in the same stew. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Where
it's just a bigger pot of, the stew, for sure. I mean, that's a factor, I guess. For sure. It's like having connection. Connection to individuals or whatever, hanging out with a group of people that are, I guess I'll use the word decent humans, and it's like I see somebody, like, even that I don't know, I see somebody and they're like telling their story on like resilience and how they achieved this and now they're doing this, and I'm like, yes, like, kick ass, that's awesome, kudos to you, and I don't even know you, like, I get excited, you know what I mean? So it's like you need to find people like that, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, surrounding yourself with people who have already done something that you want to do is actually a proven method to try to get for you to get to that point.
Nice, yeah. I didn't even look at it that way.
Yeah, and it can be a big help. But if you're in the shit stew, it can also be a big hindrance because you could start comparing yourself, and it's awfully hard to get out of that comparison cycle.
Comparison is the quickest way to an unhappy life.
It is, but it's awfully hard.
A terrible, terrible thing.
It is, but I think that we're so maniacally programmed to compare ourselves.
You're right.
And again, that comes with indoctrination, I think.
Absolutely.
I think
that's 100% indoctrination.
There's some indoctrination stuff going on in there that you just don't necessarily.
The only person you should be comparing yourself to is yourself from yesterday, and making sure you use the same ruler that you use all the time. Don't use anybody else's ruler.
But how do you come up with that ruler? That's
your own, exactly. You create it.
But how do you create it though?
Well, when you're in the right mindset, you can say to yourself, like,
is it setting goals?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to say,
is it vision boarding? Is it
it's all
like
that.
Is it all that? Is it everything?
It's all that. It's whatever worked for you. But yeah, absolutely. Journaling. Write down, 3 things today that you want to see yourself accomplish in the next 2 weeks. Whether it be put the dishes away, whether it be get a new set of tires for your car, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't have to be huge. It can be something free. It can be smiling at your neighbor. It could be saying hi or holding the door for somebody. But write it down, and once you accomplish it, you're going to have the satisfaction of checking that off your list and going, okay, I may not be that worthless, and I can, do some things throughout a day and, make some things happen. You know?
That's good. That's good. It's getting yourself into that frame of mind
Oh,
to be
sure.
able to do that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But
Well, put it this way: if it was easy, everyone would be doing it, right?
Well, that's true. We wouldn't be.
we wouldn't be here.
We wouldn't have a podcast if everybody was doing it, and neither would 180,000 other podcasts.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
And we wouldn't be getting inundated with programs and classes, and we wouldn't be taking all these things and learning all these things.
Yep. You're right. You're right.
The flow is it's a little different here in the studio today.
It's all right.
It's just different. It's weird. I'm all laid back.
I just don't want to move and get my. I feel like I need like a brace and just sit here like this.
Yeah, you don't though, because you're coming through nice and clear. So
All
if you hear us talking about EQ and stuff, it's just because I'm actually recording everything all at once tonight, and I'm used to just when we're at the Hallam Halls. Which, first of all, big shout out to Will Hallam for doing all the stuff that he's done for us all year, because Tim and I, when we record a lot of episodes together, just him and I, we're at Will's, because Will is so awesome at letting us use his stuff, and he likes being a part of it, even though he's not really, doesn't want his picture up on anything or whatever. But big shout out to him and stuff. But I'm also learning how to do stuff at home, so I'm trying to get everything sounding good, but it's kind of difficult to look at monitors and talk and do all the other stuff. But it does go to show I'm actually not freaking out like I thought I would.
I know. I was going to say, it seems like you're like relaxing. I'm like, what's going on here?
I thought I'd be freaking out by going, I don't know if this is going to sound good. But see, that's the cognitive distortion in my brain.
Right.
And and holy shit, there's
but you know what?
Button.
What I've kind of gathered, for me at least myself, just because when you said that, it something happened today, the same thing, and I was like, but then I stopped and I kind of paused and assessed and was like, okay, well, I'm using something that past scenarios, I'm using like reactions, whatever, that I'm using things from the past that have happened in the past, okay, and I'm putting it now onto this new situation. And it's not really fair. You know what I mean? So it's basically, I'm saying, like, you can have these cognitive distortions and stuff and don't beat yourself up and go, geez, I have cognitive, it's like, I just kind of was like, I mean, I'm not saying I can do this all the time.
Cognitive distortion man. I'm cognitive distortion man.
Right. But I'm not saying I can do it all the time, but I was able to do it today, and I was like, I kind of just like paused and was like, okay, well, that stuff all happened in the past, and maybe it will happen again, but right now I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to, if it happens, it happens, and I'll deal with it when it happens, but right now I'm not going to worry about it.
Yeah, and I when I brought this up today, and I'm like, man, and I was expecting a different reaction also.
From me?
From you, and I was expecting a different reaction from me too, because like I even got home to get everything set up. And
you sounded cool and into it, so I was worried at first, but I was like, hey, I'll do it if he will. So that's why I kind of let it stew for a little bit, and you were like, oh yeah, we're doing it. I'm like, all right.
Oh yeah, no, and it took us. It actually, and I didn't propose it at first because I didn't even think about it.
I didn't either.
And then I was like, wait a second, what am I doing? I bought all this stuff so I got to test. I got to put it out. I got to put it to the test, and some of it's not living up to my. Some of it's not.
So
living
Will
up
got
to
home.
my,
Basically, long story short, Will got home, put on the Rocky soundtrack, and he was downstairs.
Right. Yeah, gonna fly now, and I was gonna fly now. Except I'm not really flying in
He's
like
upstairs
the way
eating
I'm
raw
used to
eggs,
flying.
drinking raw eggs.
Drinking raw eggs, running up and down the stairs. Dun, 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 dun. Now, so here's a great story.
All right.
And see, sometimes even talking about mental health, like you can talk about mental health all you want, but you might as well talk about something that makes you happy.
Oh, yeah.
So the original Rocky movie was actually the second movie that I ever saw at a movie theater.
Nice. Wow.
Jaws was the first, and Rocky was the second. And it happened to be in the same summer, within a few months.
How old were you with Jaws? You remember?
Yeah, dude, I was 4. It was 1976.
Well, yeah.
It was the bicentennial year. And Rocky came out in 76, and we went to Hot Dog Charlie's. Like, yeah.
Wow, you have a damn good memory.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, when I was 4, we didn't go to the movies very
right,
often.
so
it was a
stuck
big
out,
thing.
Yeah.
And Jaws, of course, was a huge thing because Jaws was re-released for like a month in the summer of 76 because it had such a huge run in 75 that they brought it back for the summer. And my dad was like, we got to go see it. And which, I don't know if, that was the smartest thing for parents at 4-year-old, but I loved it. It was the best.
Heck,
I'm so happy. Oh my God, it's such a big part. But so Rocky was in the same movie theater at Proctor's in Troy. Anybody's from the 518, you'll hear about Proctor's. You know about Proctor's in Troy. And I was we were outside, and like 3 fire trucks rolled up to Proctor's. Lights.
The night of the movie?
Oh, and they all ran into the movie theater. They all ran into the movie theater, and I was thinking that the theater was on fire. I thought the theater was on fire, and I thought we weren't going to get to see the movie. Well, they come out, and it was actually a flood. There was some flooding in the theater, but
No
I didn't
way.
know that at the time. I didn't know that at
Well,
the
that's
time.
what happens when you watch Jaws in 3D.
So there was some flooding or something in part of the theater, and and actually kind of brings some insight that might have been like one of my first real anxiety moments. I didn't want to go in the theater. I started freaking out, and I was crying, and my parents were like, "Oh no, we're going. We're here." It took a while to get to the movies. Like we had to take a taxi and get to Troy from where we lived and stuff. So it was like a big deal to get there. So we were going no matter what. And the whole 10 minutes before the intro, I was like a mess. Then all of a sudden that theme started playing, the opening part of that theme, the fanfare part of it. Dude, you want to see a kid just flip on a dime.
Yeah.
That was me. Like that music, that soundtrack is such a big part of me.
That's cool.
Forever. That soundtrack. The Rocky soundtrack is such an amazing piece of music that Bill Conti wrote. That it fills me with vim and vigor, man. Like so when we talk about getting out of bad patterns, put on some good music, man. Dance around your house.
Oh, yeah.
Dance around your house like nobody's watching, because nobody is watching. Nobody gives a shit, man.
Dance around your house like Will danced when he was 5 years old.
That's right, man. Do it. Run up and down the stairs.
With his Rocky underoos on.
Rocky underoos. Wow, I wish I had Rocky underoos.
I know.
Did you have underoos when you were a kid?
Hell yeah, I did. Lone Ranger, I don't know, whatever they had, man. Masters of the Universe.
I think I had Shazam.
Nice. I did. Definitely did. Because they had
But I think they were the only pair that I had.
Some of them had the shirts, remember?
Yeah, they did. And I
Yeah.
had one with the shirt because I had the lightning bolt. Oh yeah. Yeah, I had Star Wars curtains and stuff. Like I had some cool stuff, man. I was, being a small child in the 70s was cool.
Uh-oh.
Is he here?
Yeah. The devil has arrived.
See, being at my house, you never know what you're going to find.
Yeah.
Tim's favorite animal in the world is Fernando.
He's being all right
Fernando
over
has
there.
arrived.
Here, wait, check. No, I don't even know what he's doing.
I love these. Like, it's great when we can have like normal conversations.
What do you mean? We don't?
During the no.
Why, you're saying we don't normally?
No, we do, but it's cool, and like this new year is going to be we're going to bring some new things to light, man. We're going to bring some new ideas. We're going to do some really cool stuff. In the upcoming weeks, man, we got some cool interviews coming up.
Yeah, definitely.
Sean Wellington from Suicide Noted is going to be our first interview of 2021. And then Valerie Brasseau from Toronto. She's a mental health advocate. She is a kick-ass chick out there, man. She's awesome. She'll be our second interview in January. So we got some really cool stuff coming up, man.
Yeah, some great stories, some great conversations with some great people for sure.
So make sure those cognitive distortions, turn that distortion down a little bit, man.
Yeah.
Turn it down.
What would you suggest? Like, how would you?
I say, one of the things that I'm starting to learn about is breathing. And not breathing just to meditate, but breathing to breathe. Like breathing is holotropic breathing is this system of breathing that was developed by Stanislav Grof to induce almost a psychedelic reaction. A psychedelic reaction. And I'm getting into it like Wim Hof, the Iceman. Like he's got this really cool breathing technique that I've been starting to experiment with, and I'm starting to keep a little log of doing it. But I have to watch.
I mean, he's a bit extreme, but yeah.
Well, he's a bit extreme because I hate the cold, man. So I'm not like I can't take cold shower like that shit. Just it hurts. It hurts my body.
He warms up his body by doing.
I know it's crazy. It's crazy. But
crazy.
I decided to try it and check it out. So it's. We'll as the year goes on, we'll talk more about some of these methods that are happening and things. But
if I think one of the keys is if you have some kind of connectedness to individuals or a struggle buddy, maybe they could even lend you a hand in recognizing it, because obviously when we do it, we don't always recognize it. Especially if we don't know about it. But if someone can tell us ahead of time, like, hey, is that really true kind of thing? But, and if they can help out a little bit, then great, But there's also, family, community type thing, kind of get involved in that. Pay attention to your sleeping patterns, your eating habits.
Eating habits. Those eating habits are a big thing. Because I know.
Why don't you start with me, Fernando?
I know when I'm indulging in a lot of shit. Like I have that sugar thing going on.
Dude, why are you? Fernando, do you want to sign off?
Oh, Fernando.
Look at him. We had a special appearance by a guest tonight that we didn't expect.
Fernando.
Give it up for Fernando, everybody.
Woo, Fernando. Hey, Fernando.
Well, with that, I guess I'll just say, be well.
Be safe.
Be
above.